And this debate has been going on for many years now, but this latest controversy is definitely making this discussion even more fueled. Now, the employees of Goldman Sachs Investment Bank are in for some happy times. Their salaries...
Ah, yes, and welcome back. I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
It is so good to serve you and bring you the information you need to start straightening out the nonsense that's going on. We're presenting Radio Free Canada, out-of-the-box thinkers, and we are here to give the information that CHBC and AM 1150 are not carrying.
Well, you know, they are talking about the important issues of the day.
Yes, like where does money come from and why do we have extensive poverty around the planet? Now, let's think about it. 1 in 4 Canadian children go hungry. Not one conservative cares about that.
Oh, no, we saw that in the previous segment that they don't care.
They just don't care. Remember, to be a conservative is to close your eyes and not care about poverty. 300,000 Canadians are homeless. They've got millions of dollars to go to war over in Mali. They've got millions of dollars to support all kinds of armaments. But where is the housing?
Well, you know, it's not for the poor to have housing. You know, it's better to let them die in prisons or be housed in prisons at the very least.
Yeah, I know. It's way better that that occurs. But remember, there's a simple solution, and we're here to talk about it. So let's start with this.
Since 1971, when President Nixon took the United States off what was left of the gold standard, the world has operated under a system of money called fiat. The dollar, the pound, the euro are all government fiat currencies. Fiat is a Latin word meaning let it be so. It is the law that this government currency be money. Indeed, without that legal enforcement, and the fact that we must pay taxes in this money, that dollar bill or that computer digit that represents a dollar would be pretty much meaningless. Only the government has the power to issue fiat money, but banks can create it through lending. If somebody wants to borrow $10, a bank can create it from nowhere and lend it. It can then charge interest. Banks also create money by lending against an asset, such as a house. They're given the deeds to the house, and they create the money out of nowhere and lend it, at interest, of course. But who benefits? Of course, those that have the power to issue money, governments and banks. They haven't had to do anything productive, they just create money. However money is created, be it through lending, fractional reserve banking, financial bailouts, or old-fashioned money printing, banks are always at or near the top of the money-issuing pyramid. In reality, this process of creating money only redistributes wealth from the bottom to the top of the pyramid. And thus that ever-increasing gulf between rich and poor gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
So we're going to talk about the fact that CHBC, the O'Lang and O'Leary Exchange, has never discussed fiat currency.
Let it be so.
Yes. Let that bank loan be so. Remember, if you're holding money in your wallet, if you've ever gotten a bank loan, there was no money in the bank to back it up.
And it's tough to make a sandwich out of money.
Yeah. You can't drink oil. You can't eat money. We've been trying to say that point for the last year and a half. 100 videos on YouTube right now. How White People Became Native is one of our videos on YouTube at Radio Free Canada. It discusses fiat currency, but that's probably the best clip I've seen to explain the problem.
Yeah, that's from the film Four Horsemen. I suggest everybody get a copy of that and watch it. It's really good.
We're going to start up a film night at Radio Free Canada, Four Horsemen. We're going to be playing that, talking about fiat currency. We're also going to play Gas Hole and the word about a 200 mile per gallon car.
Or cars that run on air. We are coming up with another segment during the week. We're going to be talking about positive change and the things that people are doing.
Yes, we've got an innovation segment coming up, and I really want you to get informed about aquaponics, high-density farming, and the fact that there are simple solutions to end poverty this year. It's only banks and government that aren't interested.
Speaking of a bank that is promoting poverty.
Oh, man, check this out. It's on the World Forum. What you will not hear on the Lang and O'Leary Exchange, the economy, right here. It's Radio Free Canada.
good times at Goldman Sachs. Staff at the investment giant are reported to be getting a significant salary boost, but a lot of that money has been made on the back of surging food prices, which are leaving many around the world starving. RT's Alexei Yurashevsky has been looking into this story. Alexei, tell us, how does this affect food prices, per se, in Africa?
Well, this debate has been going on for many years now, but this latest controversy is definitely making this discussion even more fueled. Now, the employees of Goldman Sachs Investment Bank are in for some happy times. Their salaries have reportedly been raised and almost $500,000 worth of annual bonuses are to be paid out. All because in 2012, the company made about $400 million from investing its clients' money in a range of products known as soft commodities, such as wheat and maize to coffee and sugar. But what's good for bankers is damaging the global food situation, say experts, and many claim major investment players are contributing to a global food emergency. The United Nations warned that the world could be on the brink of a major hunger crisis this year after poor harvests in the United States and Ukraine. Food prices already surged last summer, with cereals hitting a record high in September. Last year, food cost 16% higher than in 2010 and more than twice as expensive as a decade ago, even after adjusting for inflation. With almost 1 billion people already starving, such a forecast could make things catastrophically worse. And the latest controversy with Goldman Sachs has once again reignited the debate on what actually stands behind the hike in food prices. Organizations like Food Watch say they are not the only ones. Financial players around the world bear a large part of blame by investing astronomical sums of money into foodstuffs and speculating on the prices to make big profits. In the last 3 years alone, speculators have poured in an extra $100 billion into the sector, and that is expected of driving prices even higher. Investment and central banks deny this, saying futures trading is important for farmers and that their bets have no effect. Yet the price hikes bear scant resemblance to the natural growth and demand for food. Moreover, they are already creating grounds for instability, sparking protests and demonstrations. For instance, in several African countries, including Burkina Faso and Senegal, bakers went on strike recently because of an 80% increase in the price of wheat. So if this trend continues, people will be unable to afford basic staple foods. And if further harvests suffer too, it's not hard to imagine the consequences for the world's hungry.
Right, Alexei, thank you very much for breaking that down for us.
And then we hit the interesting part of the program.
Yes.
We know the economy and money is made up out of nowhere. The prices are driven up by speculation. So why isn't it stopped? And why don't bankers feed people?
Because the economy comes before anything else, especially bank profits. Well, that is the same thing, isn't it?
Yes. Remember, if you're watching the news, especially CHBC, Global, any of those guys with no credibility, when they say economy, substitute the words bank profits, and you'll start to understand how things really work and the fact that these bankers hire really well paid consultants
called lobbyists.
Yeah, and they show up in Parliament, they show up on the news, but they look so good.
And they say you should vote this way because our profits will increase. And by the way, here's a bunch of money for your campaign contributions.
Yeah, I know. Goldman Sachs won the election between Obama and
You mean
Romney.
the selection?
The selection, yes. Yeah, thinking about democracy, that one always kills me.
Yeah.
Is that, look up the College of, whatever.
Mind you, they are talking about reforming the Electoral College, but that's another story for another day.
I'm sorry. Reforming the Electoral College. That's what I was talking about, but that's sort of going the same way reforming Senate is in Canada.
You mean the one that Harper appoints people to?
That's right. Let's run this.
Well, so far, the only bit of hope that's come out of this Davos conference this year is from the Icelandic president, who's standing alongside me, Olafur Ragnar Grimsson. Mr. President, why are you such a beacon of hope? Why has Iceland survived where Europe has failed? What are you doing differently?
I think it surprises a lot of people that 4 years ago we were exhibit number one of a failed financial system. But now we are back on recovery with economic growth and very little unemployment. And I think the primary reason is that we were wise enough to realize this was also a fundamental social and political crisis. But above all, we didn't follow the traditional prevailing orthodoxies of the Western world in the last 30 years. We introduced currency controls, we let the banks fail, we provided support for the poor. We didn't introduce austerity measures of the scale you're seeing here in Europe. And the end result, 4 years later, is that Iceland is enjoying progress and recovery very different from the other European countries that suffered from the financial crisis.
But with your policy of letting the banks fail, would that have worked for the rest of Europe?
I think so, because as I'm often asked people, why do they consider the banks to be the holy churches of the modern economy? Why are private banks, not like airlines and telecommunication companies, allowed to go bankrupt if they have been conducted in an irresponsible way? The theory that you have to bail out banks is a theory about bankers enjoying for their own profit the success and then letting ordinary people bear the failure through taxes and austerity. And people in enlightened democracies are not going to accept that in the long run.
It wouldn't work for the UK with their reliance on the financial sector, though, would it?
Well, this is an interesting question, because one thing we learned after the collapse of the banks in Iceland, that the Icelandic banks, like the British and the Americans and other banks, have in fact become high-tech companies, hiring engineers, mathematicians, computer scientists. And when they failed, the innovative sectors of our economy, the IT sector, the high-tech sector, in fact blossomed and have been doing much better in the last 3 years than ever before. So the lesson of that is that if you want your economy to be competitive in the innovative sector of the 21st century, a strong financial sector that takes the talent from these sectors, even a successful financial sector, is in fact bad news if you want your economy to be competitive in the areas which really are the 21st century areas: innovation, technology, IT.
President Grimson, thank you very much indeed.
You know, I'm liking this guy.
Oh, yes.
Yes, this guy, I like him.
I think Iceland is the model that people should be holding up to the world on. This is how you recover from a financial crisis.
And remember, Iceland hired bounty hunters to track the bankers who escaped down and throw their wine and sniveling butts into jail.
That's right. It's interesting, though, that another town has noticed the Icelandic model.
Okay.
And this is another indebted country.
Okay, let's run this.
The weather comes in straight off the North Atlantic here, and the hailstones sting their faces. But every Sunday for 100 weeks in a row, the people of this little community have protested, outraged at how the pension funds and institutional investors who made bad bets in Irish banks have been able to get their money back from an impoverished public. One way or another, all of them have suffered because of the bank bailout. Pat and Kathleen are considering emigrating to New Zealand. Pat has to hold down 2 jobs to pay the bills. They blame the banks and the government for passing on debts to the people.
I think that we are starting now to get the message out very strongly that you can do this, the world's not going to fall apart, and that if we do this all together, we'll get the solidarity, get the people of Ireland together against the banks and against the government, and stand up to them and say, no, this time you are not going any further with us.
Frances is a retired nurse and farmer. She says she marches for Ireland, her 5 grandchildren, and for future generations.
As well as paying the debt, they're suffering. They won't have the opportunities that our children had, that they can go to college, they can have the best of everything. That won't be there for those because of the imposition of the terrible debt.
The rest of Ireland has reacted passively to being told it has to bail out the investors, but not here.
We are not helpless. And the peoples across North Africa have shown that. The people in Greece, peoples all over the world, for time immemorial, have shown that the real power rests with the people. That's where you had the French Revolution, that's where you have the American Revolution. It's people getting off their knees and fighting.
Do you think you'll win?
Oh, I think we'll win. We will win.
The terms of the bailout mean the government taking $4 billion every year from the people for another decade and donating it to the investment funds. Frankly, it would be amazing if there weren't more protests. Lawrence Lee, Al Jazeera, Ballyhay, Southern Ireland.
Just remember that it's only banks and government that are explaining that the things are too complex to create prosperity.
Yeah, so the economy is not that complex.
No, but we're going to keep explaining it. What do we got coming up in another segment?
Well, we're going to be talking about the currency wars that are raging, the tensions that are rising between the U.S. and China and Japan. And we'll also be talking about the gun bill debate down in the States.
We've got many more things coming up. Remember, Crowdsource Canada is coming up. Police Brutality 2013 on the way. More documentaries and information than you can shake a stick at. But hey, what do you want to shake a stick for anyways? I'm Darren Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
Remember, we don't make commercials saying trust us. We're Radio Free Canada.